The sky hung gray, a heavy silence draped over the cemetery. Black cars rolled in, engines low and deliberate. Then, he appeared, Bumpy Johnson, steps measured, eyes cold yet carrying an unspoken reverence. Cameras clicked, but no flash could capture the tension in the air. Mourners froze mid-whisper. Hollywood stars, reporters, old-timers, none expected him here. A gangster, feared in the streets of New York, standing at the edge of a Hollywood legend's final resting place. The wind stirred the autumn leaves, swirling around polished shoes and black suits. Some men shifted, uneasy, as if the air itself warned them. Bumpy's gaze locked on the polished oak casket, a quiet intensity radiating from him. And then, a hush fell. A nearby mourner leaned in and whispered, "He's going to speak, right here." The question hung heavy. The camera cut close to Bumpy's face, calm, almost unreadable, but with an intensity that made hearts race. He walked forward. Every step echoed like a drumbeat, each footfall a countdown to something unseen. And then, he stopped. What could a man like Bumpy Johnson possibly whisper to John Wayne's casket that could move hardened men to tears? It was the 1980s, Los Angeles. The city of stars, yet today, the streets were quiet, mourning. John Wayne, the Duke, was gone. His legacy hung in the air like smoke from a candle blown out too soon. The funeral was a spectacle, yet intimate. Actors, directors, old friends, and strangers alike gathered to honor a man who seemed immortal. And then there was Bumpy Johnson, arriving in silence. The contrast was impossible to ignore: Hollywood glamour, red carpets of memory, and the underworld kingpin who had carved a name from fear and respect. People whispered. Cameras focused. Everyone wondered why he was here. Bumpy's past was not public, but it was known in shadows. He had walked the line between loyalty and lawlessness, and yet, something in John Wayne had drawn him across oceans, across worlds, to this quiet Los Angeles cemetery. The tension thickened as mourners exchanged uneasy glances. Could a man who lived by rules of the street possibly understand or honor a man whose kingdom was cinema? Memory flashes, Bumpy in the back rooms of Manhattan, John Wayne on silver screens, larger than life, moral, heroic. Two worlds destined never to touch, until today. Bumpy's presence demanded attention. His eyes scanned the casket, then the faces around him. There was an unspoken question in the air: who would speak first? Who would feel the weight of this collision? And in that moment, the crowd held its breath. Every camera, every lens, every eye, all focused on one man moving closer to the casket. The story was no longer about Hollywood. It was about respect. About legacy. About what is spoken, and what remains unsaid. Bumpy Johnson moved slowly, deliberately, through the sea of mourners. Old Hollywood stars stiffened as he passed. A producer gripped the edge of his suit, eyes darting nervously. A hardened gangster in the middle of the Duke's funeral? The audacity was astonishing. Close-ups captured the subtle tensions, a quiver of a lip, a hesitant step, hands fidgeting with programs. Bumpy's eyes never wavered. He was focused, unflinching, yet there was a quiet reverence to his movement. Flashbacks peppered the narrative. In dimly lit back rooms, Bumpy had met powerful men and women. Deals were made. Respect earned. But among those memories, John Wayne always appeared differently. Not as a star, not as a legend, but as a man whose moral code, whose integrity, had left a mark. The audience feels the suspense. Each step toward the casket raises the stakes. Will someone stop him? Will the Hollywood elite intervene? Murmurs ripple through the crowd. "Is he allowed here?" whispers a man in a gray coat. Another shakes his head. Cameras zoom. The frame tightens on Bumpy's hand brushing against the velvet rope, an almost symbolic crossing of worlds. He reaches the front. His gaze sweeps the room, observing every reaction. The tension is palpable. A grandmother clutches her shawl, a child's eyes widen, an actor steps back instinctively. And then, the hush deepens. Bumpy pauses before the casket. A flicker of emotion crosses his face. His lips part slightly. What is he about to say? What secret could a criminal whisper to the tomb of a Hollywood icon that might shatter the composure of all who watch? The camera lingers on the oak casket, polished and heavy. Bumpy's shadow stretches over it. And then, he leans in. Bumpy's lips moved. The whisper was soft, almost imperceptible. The audience strains to hear, but it is meant to be intimate, secretive. The words hold weight. Power. Humanity. A nearby mourner stiffens, eyes widening. Another steps back, unsure if what he just heard is real. The whisper is not of threats or crime. It is something else: respect, acknowledgement, perhaps even regret. Flashbacks illuminate fragments of the past. Bumpy remembered a handshake in a hotel hallway, a private conversation where Wayne's words had mattered. And now, decades later, here he was, speaking silently into the polished wood that carried the Duke's final rest. The wind shifts. Leaves swirl. Cameras catch the flutter, but not the sound. Only Bumpy's intent is clear. Eyes narrow, hearts race. Suspense coils in the air. The hush in the crowd is deafening. Every mourner feels the gravity of the moment. Some clutch tissues. Others glance at one another, questioning if they should feel what they feel. A man whispers, almost to himself, "Did he just forgive him?" Another murmurs, "Or is he thanking him?" Bumpy straightens. His eyes linger on the casket a beat longer. Something has shifted in the room, tension giving way to a quiet sorrow. The hardened exterior of the crowd cracks, revealing the shared human emotion underneath. And just like that, the whisper, small and fleeting, becomes the catalyst for tears, reflection, and awe. What was said remains unknown, but its effect is undeniable. And with that, the story's direction changes. The gangster is no longer just a figure of fear, but a man touched by respect, by memory, by the weight of legacy. No one knew the depth of Bumpy Johnson's connection to John Wayne. They were worlds apart, yet their lives intersected in ways unseen. A shared sense of honor. A mutual understanding of loyalty. And a respect that transcended fame or fear. Flashback, a Manhattan apartment, smoke curling from a cigar, Bumpy leaning back. Across from him, a photo of Wayne on a silver screen. A man like that, Bumpy had said once, he knows what it means to stand alone. To mean something. Wayne's films had been more than entertainment. They were moral lessons, codes of ethics in celluloid. Bumpy had absorbed them quietly, privately. And it had left an impression that only today, in the cemetery, could be revealed. The funeral crowd remained oblivious to the private history. They saw only a gangster at a Hollywood funeral. They did not know that decades ago, Bumpy had helped a young actor in need, following principles that mirrored Wayne's own. This was not the gangster the world knew. This was a man capable of deep reflection, of reverence, of profound respect. And now, standing over the casket, that history unfolded silently in his mind, a secret only he carried. The camera captures subtle gestures, a hand brushing the polished wood, a pause, a breath drawn slowly. In these small actions, the audience senses hidden truths revealed. It is as if the casket itself holds their shared past. The crowd's emotions begin to swell. People begin to understand, without words, that history is rarely what it seems. Even the most feared men have codes, hearts, and respect buried under layers of reputation. Mini cliffhanger, how did this private bond transform what the crowd was witnessing? How did a lifetime of secrecy translate into a single whisper that moved grown men to tears? Bumpy's gaze lingers, and the weight of what remains unspoken is almost unbearable. His story, intertwined with Wayne's, becomes a revelation not just to him, but to everyone present. Bumpy stands still. His eyes trace the gravestones, the mourners, the wind-blown leaves. For a man known for action, for intimidation, this moment is stillness incarnate. He reflects on life, mortality, and the fragile beauty of legacy. Memories surface, his father's words, friends lost too young, streets he had walked in silence. John Wayne's life echoes in contrast, public, heroic, iconic, but Bumpy feels the shared humanity beneath it all. Visual symbolism, shadows stretching over gravestones, light dimming, wind shifting as if the world itself pauses in recognition. Every sound, every movement, magnified. The audience feels Bumpy's introspection, his growth, his quiet reverence. The gangster is not changed outwardly. He does not bow, nor does he weep openly. But the transformation is visible in his stance, in the way he carries himself. A man who controlled fear now bends to respect. A man feared by many now stands humbled. The whisper, the reflection, the quiet acknowledgement, these are his transformation. The audience is invited to sit in the silence, to feel the weight of a life lived in extremes, now touched by fleeting grace. And yet, suspense lingers. The world outside this cemetery will never understand fully. What will people say when they hear about Bumpy's quiet reverence? The tension does not fade. It simmers, leaving viewers on edge, wondering, can respect, honor, and human connection change even the hardest man? Then it happens. Bumpy straightens and steps back slightly. The room feels heavier. Cameras capture subtle shifts. Men blink rapidly, wiping tears. Hands shake. Breaths catch. The aura of the cemetery transforms. The whisper is no longer audible to anyone but Bumpy, yet its emotional resonance spreads like a shockwave. Men who had faced wars, gunfights, betrayal, now tremble. Hollywood stars, old-timers, journalists, each is affected differently, but the effect is the same: awe, humility, grief. Rain begins softly, adding a cinematic layer. Leaves glisten, footsteps splashing through puddles. Close-ups capture eyes reddening, lips trembling, shoulders sagging. The juxtaposition of crime and legend, fear and respect, reaches its apex. Bumpy's face is unreadable, but the subtle twitch of an eye, the faint tightening of his jaw, betrays emotion he will not speak. This is power, not violence, but humanity. The kind of power that silences and moves everyone at once. A mourner whispers, barely audible, "I've never seen anything like this." Another murmurs, "He respected him." The tension is cinematic, dramatic. Every frame, every angle, designed to let the audience feel the scene as though they are present. And then, a final, lasting glance. Bumpy steps back. His shadow stretches over the casket one last time. The moment crystallizes. It is profound, unforgettable. Every person present is changed, carrying a fragment of this quiet, intense, emotional collision. The audience senses the full weight of human connection transcending fear, fame, and legend. Cliffhanger: what will history remember? What does this moment mean for the legacies of both men? Bumpy walks away. Quietly. No one follows. Cameras capture his retreating figure, every step deliberate. The crowd watches in stunned silence. The funeral continues, yet the mood is altered. Men who thought themselves invincible, unshakable, are humbled. They whisper to one another, exchanging uncertain glances. Stories will spread: the gangster who cried silently for a movie star. The power of respect, loyalty, and shared humanity, even across worlds. Visual symbolism abounds: wet pavement reflecting gray skies, Bumpy's shadow disappearing into distance, mourners frozen mid-thought. The cemetery holds the echoes of this extraordinary event. Real-world consequences ripple: whispers in Hollywood, in New York, in corridors of power. Reputation and humanity, fear and respect, merge. Legends are made not only by what men do, but what they quietly honor. Suspense lingers. The audience is left pondering: can one whisper, one gesture, truly alter perception? Can humanity pierce the armor of the world's toughest men? The city exhales. Sunset bathes Los Angeles in warm, golden light. Bumpy fades into the streets, unseen. But the echoes remain. Two worlds collided in silence: the crime kingpin and the cinematic legend. Respect, humanity, and unspoken understanding transcended fear, fame, and legacy. History, usually loud, carried a quiet story that few would ever hear. The symbolism is subtle: a lone figure walking past gravestones, shadows lengthening, leaves swirling, life continues, but moments like this linger, marking those present forever. The audience is invited to reflect. Legacy is not only the fame we earn, but the respect we inspire, the lives we touch silently. Even hardened men, feared and revered, can be moved. Bumpy Johnson leaves a story unspoken, a whisper that echoes through time. And John Wayne's legacy gains new dimension: not just heroism on screen, but connection, humanity, and profound influence. In a world defined by fear, power, and reputation, what does it truly take to touch hearts, even the hardest of men? Can respect and human connection reach deeper than fame or intimidation? How often do we overlook quiet acts of humanity that ripple through history? Share your thoughts. Could you imagine witnessing such a moment? Would it change how you see people, power, or legacy?